Hello, welcome to episode 11 of the Bottoms Up podcast. I am your host, Taylor. I realize that I've never introduced myself on any of my episodes, but yes, I am your host. I am here today with my brother, Chris, or as my mom calls him, Christopher. Yeah, you might want to hold the mic closer to you.
Oh, like this?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Howdy, my name is Chris. What should I tell the people?
I mean, you're a very multifaceted
The fun
human
facts?
being. Yeah. What's really, 3 fun facts.
3 fun facts. I've been to 25 countries. Let's see. I know how to solve a Rubik's Cube. Let's see. I don't know. I'm not that fun.
You are.
I'm trying to think. Have I met a celebrity or something? I guess I met a couple celebrities. Does Hillary Clinton count as a celebrity?
Yeah.
I met Hillary Clinton once.
Yeah. War criminals count as celebrities.
There you go. That's the thing. I'm not that fun. I'm kind of boring.
You're really not. I don't know why you would say that.
What would you
about
say are
yourself.
3 fun facts about me?
Well, you're literally in medical school pursuing a PhD and an MD. That's pretty
I mean,
crazy.
that's not a fun fact, though.
That's
just the fact. It's not that fun.
Okay, what qualifies a fact as fun?
I don't know. I have 6 toes on my right foot. That's what I think of when I think of fun fact.
Okay. Well, I think you being in med
You'll have
school.
to live with 2. I could only think of 2.
Okay, fine. I mean, you taught in Columbia.
That's not fun, though. That's just a fact. When I think of fun fact, I think I can hold my breath underwater for an hour. That's a fun fact.
Okay, give
You know
me
what I'm
3
saying?
facts about yourself then.
Oh, you can do 3 facts. I live in Chicago.
Okay, don't
Let's
dox
see.
yourself, please.
I taught in Columbia. I am in an MD PhD program. I grew up in Maryland. I missed my dog.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see. I was a psychology major in college. I love to cook. I love to eat. I love to eat more than I love to cook, to be very honest. I played the flute for a very long time. That's a fun fact, I guess.
You played a couple instruments. You flute, French horn,
I think
piccolo.
exactly a couple. Piccolo I count as the same.
You stole my clarinet a couple times.
That's it, though. That's all I have to say. What's the first question?
I mean, it's not really questions. It's more of a conversation about you and about, I don't know, I wanted to talk about our life growing up and all of that, since I guess right now we are answering, after 20, you're 27, right?
I am 27.
Yeah, after 27 years, we're answering probably the most pertinent question of my childhood of, hey, Taylor, is your brother gay?
Oh, I am.
It'd be really funny if you weren't.
It would be kind of crazy. But I definitely am. I am a man who has sex with men. Just like the studies.
For a while, because obviously, I didn't care. It was so, far, left field, when I think about, things in our childhood and, things about you that I genuinely, cared about, it just, I don't know, I didn't think about it. And then it's so I just assumed, if you haven't said anything about it, then that means that you're straight. It didn't matter.
I don't think I was ever straight. Not in my heart.
Honestly, me neither. For myself. But then there was when I was kind of coming to that conclusion for myself, I definitely was oh my God, it's so funny how everybody thought that my brother was gay when I was younger, but no, it was actually me, who was the gay sibling. And then you stole that from me. So.
My bad.
Yeah. See, this is what Thanksgiving is for. Family drama.
For me, Thanksgiving is about me getting my plate.
A couple plates.
And then getting on my flight. Because I am checked into the flight. I told you I'm already checked in for the flight.
Yes, you already checked in. Yes.
So the next 18 hours, I just get my plate.
You're going to get a couple plates. I know you. Okay, before we get into it, we got to do horoscopes. So I will read mine to get it out of the way because CoStar is always very, very mean to me.
Okay.
Actually, no, my last episode, it was very kind. So I'll give her that.
This is actually the first time I'm wearing these pants. They're very wide.
Wait, did you cut them yourself?
No, they came like that.
Oh, interesting.
They retailed for $90. Guess how much I paid?
How much did you pay?
11.
Oh, I thought you were going to say like 80.
Oh, no, absolutely not. And mind you, I bought two. So almost $200 of pants for what, 22, 24 with tax, 25 with tax.
I like them.
Mm-hmm.
I like them a lot.
I like them a lot. These are about to be some. Because I've noticed that I'll let you get to the little horoscope. But I want more. I have a lot of tops. I want to get more like pants. I feel like I don't have a lot. Like, I feel like my tops are more versatile than my pants are.
See, I feel like I'm the exact opposite scenario right now. I have a lot of really cool pairs of pants. Like I have this one pair of corduroy, like high-waisted vintage pants that are like
corduroys.
First of all, okay, I like them and they're like this really pretty floral print, but the sound that corduroy makes when I walk is a little bit annoying, but I really like those pants. So like they're not going anywhere. But like my tops, like I don't really have a lot of good tops. I'm working on it. Okay, my horoscope for Thursday, November 23rd, also happy Sagittarius season, says you can hold yourself accountable and forgive yourself at the same time. That sounds like something that's very relevant when you're spending time with family. Says chase adventure. You're not as concerned about the little things right now. The big picture paves the way for smaller tasks later. All that's left is to do it. Do's, cosmos, mornings, the year ahead. Don't, deflection, blind spots, fruitless wishing. Very interesting. I'll keep that in mind. That was very positive. I kind of liked that.
Am I supposed to read mine now?
Yes.
Okay, let's see.
Oh, and he's a Cancer, which I have definitely talked shit about Cancers on this show before, but it is what it is.
How do I find my horoscope? It says this is the
Yeah, so that top statement, that's like the beginning, and then you scroll down and you'll see more.
Oh, okay. It says, good afternoon, Chris. It's 50 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny in your area. We're in Washington, D.C.
Can you not? No.
Oh, my bad. It's a big city. Oh, so we're not supposed to say any...
I don't even have my last name attached to this, so be careful.
Oh, well, Washington's a pretty big... I mean, we're in Washington State. We might be in Columbia. See how they don't know. It could be 50 degrees in all three of those places. Anyways, rebirth yourself. Oh, I'm going to sneeze. I'm never going to read this horoscope. Sorry, I could feel it coming. It'll probably come. It says rebirth yourself as often as you can. And then I get... Sorry. Oh my God. I can feel it coming.
Just let it happen.
Do we want to go into the daily updates?
Yeah.
Okay. Daily updates. It says, a sympathetic listener, your sun sign describes who you are. I'm a Cancer sun. It's a picture of a papaya. As a Cancer sun, you feel the weight of the past heavily. You're hardwired to avoid conflict and don't appreciate harsh truths. Home is where you feel safest, whether that is a physical location with your chosen family or even comfortable solitude. Oh, and then there's more.
I agree with that.
Okay. It says emotionally, and now there's a moon. I think that's the moon. Okay. Emotionally expressive. Your moon sign describes your emotional self. As a Leo moon, you are a little addicted to melodrama. When you feel big feelings, it's hard for you to hide them. It's like you are the main character in a soap opera and everyone else is simply a supporting actor. See, I don't agree with that. I know someone who is very much like that, but that I definitely don't think they got that right. Anyways, you appear charming and sociable. Your rising sign is how you appear to others. I'm a Libra rising. As a Libra rising, people view you as someone who loves being around others. Yes. Even if you're going through something difficult internally, your main concern is making sure that those around you are having a good time. Absolutely. Okay.
All right.
Is that everything?
Honestly, yeah, that's enough. I think I sent you to the wrong section, but it's fine.
Oh.
We got the main points.
We got the main points.
Yeah. I mean, I don't like really believe in horoscopes. I just, it's like very lesbian to like be into your horoscopes. So that's why I really
And you're a
believe in it.
lesbian.
I am. I am.
She, her.
She, they.
Them, she. And those over there.
So, yeah, childhood-wise, not to jump into all the trauma, but
Oh no.
like like I was saying earlier, there was just this like constant question of like whether or not you were gay. And I understand, like, you know, we
For
grew
you or for whom?
from well do people ask you like all the time too?
Yeah.
They definitely
Not
ask
all
me.
the time, but yeah, the teasing, the bullying, all the normal stuff. Yeah.
I guess because like you like sometimes I've thought about it a lot, obviously, and I think a lot of people obviously like ask you like because like you're just a flamboyant person, and I think even like seeing you like come into your own more and like seeing you become even more flamboyant has like been a huge inspiration for me.
Period.
But I would even say like I don't think you being flamboyant really has like anything to do with you being gay, because I just think that we're just flamboyant people. I think it just because we're very similar, and like we grew up obviously in the same household and had like a lot of the same influences and like relatively like similar goals like life and career wise. So I think that, I don't know, it's kind of weird to think that someone looks at you and those qualities and is like, oh, he must be gay, and people looked at me with those qualities and it was just like, we're not even gonna think about it. Like it wasn't even like relevant at all.
Yeah. I mean, well, a couple things. Well, I think lesbians experience a lot more discrimination than gay people.
Really?
Like lesbian women, gay men. That comparison. Because I feel like even what I mean by that is within the whole rainbow mafia umbrella, there's still patriarchy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so when people think about, so for example, in Chicago where I live, there is can I say that?
Yeah.
In Chicago where I live, the gayborhood is called Boys Town. It's not called Girls Town. Do you know what I mean? So that's what I mean. And so I feel like it was easier to pay attention to homosexuality with me being a man as opposed to homosexuality with you being a woman. That's one. Or when people think about like gay bars very generically, that's like the encompassing term, and then everything else kind of flows beneath that. But gay is a term used to describe men historically. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Whereas now it's kind of like an umbrella term to describe like generally kind of any queer person, whatever. So that's one. And then two, thinking about childhood, I think the first memory I have of being like asked, I think I was maybe 6 or 7.
Really? That was really young.
Yeah, that's just the earliest that I can remember. Or even maybe even daycare. I would say probably like 6, if I want to be really accurate. That's like the first memory I have. But the thing is, when you're that young and you're not intellectually mature yet, you don't have words to describe. You just know that these are terms that people are just like calling you to make fun of you.
Yeah.
But what 6-year-old knows what like being homosexual is?
That's what I was gonna
Do you
say,
know what I
like,
mean?
you're so
Like you don't
young.
have the capacity for that kind of language yet because you're 6 years old. And so that I didn't really realize obviously until I got older someone's calling me. Can I take a call or should I ignore it?
Who's calling you? No, I'll just text him.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but when you're that age, you're not even focused on like, this is who I am. You're just focused on this makes me feel bad, and I don't even know what these words, like, mean. I remember one time I remember I was in middle school. I think I was in the 6th grade or the 7th grade. I remember this so distinctly. I was going to the bathroom, from class. I was in like math or reading or something. And then I was coming back to the classroom after I finished in the bathroom, and I ran into this kid in the hallway on my way back to the classroom. And he stopped me. This was someone I knew. He stopped me and he was like, oh, like, look at the ceiling. And I was like, okay. And then he said, hold your hand out. I was like, okay. And then he said, pretend like you're like rolling marbles in your hand. And it was the weirdest thing. I had no idea what was the point of this like action. But he was asking me to essentially like portray being like sexually assaulted in the middle of the hallway. It was very, very odd. And so I think when things like that would start to happen, or I remember one time, I was definitely in the 6th grade, because I remember I was going to school. I got off the school bus, and you know when when you're on the school bus and you're getting off, you have to like go down those stairs, and then you step onto the sidewalk, right, or the pavement. And I remember I tripped down the stairs one day, just tripped, like I lost my balance, and I fell out of the bus onto the pavement of the bus stop at the school. And like my backpack fell off, like all my things fell out, It was so embarrassing. And I'm gathering my things, putting them back in my backpack. And then this boy, I won't name him. He he told everybody that I was so gay that I couldn't even walk in a straight line, which I thought was actually very, very clever thing to say.
Definitely, yeah.
And I remember that day I had gym class, and I threw a basketball at him in the face, and I did break his nose. I don't know why I mentioned that, but yeah, like little things like that. Or I feel like in high school not really. It was mostly like middle school, because I feel like middle schoolers are just fucking awful. It was mostly like middle school and elementary school, like to a lesser extent, but I would say like the teasing and the bullying, that kind of stuff, it was like the worst in middle school. And then I think in high school, I don't know, I guess in high school people were just more mature, like everyone had kind of grown up. And so it was less of like this constant sort of thing. Or I guess in high school, you're with so many people that you've been going to school with at that point for, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 years, that at that point it's just like a tired joke, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so it's not even like high school, I had no problem. I actually think I was kind of like popular in high school.
No, you're definitely popular in high school.
Like I definitely think I was part of what people would call like the popular group.
It's also when your Snapchat like kind of popped off.
Yeah, that was when I started using Snapchat. I haven't used Snapchat since I was 21, because I went to Colombia, and then I didn't use like really any social media there. Yeah, and that was the last time I used Snapchat. But I definitely did have a Snapchat era, in like the latter part of high school, and also at college. Yeah, I definitely just started talking. I don't even remember what your original question was.
I honestly don't remember either. But, to what you're saying about, like, I think middle school was probably, like,
I will say, though, talking is getting me, like, very hungry. And I'm, like, glad I'm doing this, because then I'm going to be super nice and hungry when I get to eat today. Anyway.
No, like, I was just saying, like, middle school was definitely, like, kind of, like, the brunt of it. And it just, I understand that, like, we're kids, and we're surrounded by kids.
Right, and, like, kids are fucking stupid.
Yeah. It's like, I don't want to, like, blame any children for the way that children act. I think it was more so just a product of the world that we were in. I think it was a product of where we grew up. And I think it was probably a product of parenting as well.
Although, I don't think, at least in my experience, I don't think parenting had anything to do with it. Because when I came out, like, it was nothing but love and support, and everything was fine. Yeah, no, I actually couldn't have asked for a better reaction. I feel like everything was fine for me in my case.
I think I could have asked for a better reaction, but I've also been told that I could have gone about it a better way. So, I don't know. I have complex feelings about all of that.
Well, this is the podcast. Aren't you supposed to unpack all that on the podcast?
Absolutely not.
Oh, dang.
That's why I pay $100 a month between two.
Yeah, I don't have my degrees yet.
Yeah, we're getting there though. We're getting there.
I could never be a psychiatrist though.
Wait, you have a degree in psychology, so what do you want to do? And you're in med school.
That was a mistake. I honestly wish I had if I had known that I wanted to go to medical school when I went to college, I would have. If I had understood more about how the process works, because to go to medical school, it doesn't matter what I don't know how much you know about medical school, but it doesn't matter what you major in. I have friends who were studio art major. I have a friend who was an architecture major. I have friends who did music, engineering, a lot of psychology, of course, like a lot of biology and chemistry and biochemistry and things like that. But I have a friend who was a history major. One of my friends in my program, she was a biology major in college, but her PhD that she's going to do is in anthropology. Like, you can truly do anything that you want as long as you take those like prerequisite classes. What was I saying? Oh yeah, but going back, if I had known, one, that I wanted to go to medical school, and two, that was the case, then I probably would have done a music major.
Of course, yeah.
I would have done like a music major, or I would have done like art. And I would have started art from like, because I don't have any like artistic, like I would have started right from the beginning, like Art 101, gotten my like art degree, or honestly probably like history. One of my very good, have I introduced you to, I guess we're not naming names anyways, but I have a really good friend who, black, queer, who you would really like.
Is this the one that you like added me to a group chat with because they came to visit Miami?
No, not them. Okay. That's the thing. I have so many. There's so many in my life now besides you that you will get introduced to all of them someday. Okay. But this particular friend, she was African American Studies major in college. And I feel like that kind of lens just prepares you so much differently for medical school than like a biology degree does. Not that it's like bad to major in biology or chemistry or whatever. But I feel like the people that are in my close circle, they studied like history or like public health or African American studies or ethnic studies. Or I have a friend now who's applying to medical school who I really, really like. She was a American studies major, but with a focus on like African American history. It's just like, you just enjoy different conversations with them than like the average person that studied like, you know, analytical chemistry or something. But yeah, that's what I would have done. I would have studied probably like a humanity, because psych is so broad and I don't even really use it that much. And so, yeah, that would be the one thing that I would change. But I had a pretty good experience in college.
Listen, where do you want, I guess, like with medical school, like where are you trying to get to, or have you not figured that out yet?
I would love to have my own policy institute within a hospital. And so when you see something like, what's a good example? Oh, so for example, when Roe v. Wade was overturned, you've probably heard of the concept of like sanctuary states with like migration and refugees. Well, there's something very similar with places that you can go to get abortion. It's like a very similar concept. And the unique thing about living in a place like Chicago or Illinois largely is that you're surrounded by these places like Wisconsin and Iowa and Indiana, right, etc., Iowa, where now all of a sudden people are trying to go somewhere where they can get an abortion, and Chicago is sort of this safe haven that people can go all of a sudden, and that is just the case, and now the health system has to adapt in the moment. And so, because they're coming, so you have to find some way to accommodate. And so what I'm very interested in is like, how does the health ecosystem as like an organism actually do that? From the perspective of like beds, human personnel, how do you figure out the mental health for all these people? They have to travel like miles. Where are they going to stay? Do they have family or friends? And like, do they have like an actual like social network in the area? All these things
like
that are,
too.
You know, exactly. Like all these things that are, how did they become pregnant in the first place? Like all these things that are so separate from just like the medical procedure of getting an abortion itself, like all the things that lead up to that, and then after it actually happens, right? Because then they can't just get an abortion and then go back to their life. Like they have to have all that kind of follow-up support, etc. And so for me, from like a medical perspective, with the MD, like, and this is just one example, but like when these sort of political phenomena take place, like I want to have the medical expertise to be able to take care of people like clinically, like with medicine and making them like not sick anymore. But then also the research expertise to be able to consult a hospital or advise like an outpatient center or like a health network, like what is the best research proven course of action to follow. And so I want to be a hospitalist. I don't think like outpatient medicine is for me, or like private practice. Like I definitely want to work in a hospital. I would love to have like my own policy like research lab or like policy institute or like public health strategy team for things like COVID, for example, or because I'm in like LGBTQ health. And so another good example is if you heard of the Genesis Clinic, it was a clinic in Texas. It was like pretty much the only place that you could go for gender affirming care. And you probably remember when Governor Abbott of Texas basically said, or not basically, I hate that word. He said, this is tantamount to child abuse. And so he closed this clinic. It eventually did reopen. This was all in, I think, 2019 or so, like 2019, 2020. And eventually it did reopen because what people don't understand is that these like gender clinics, like lots of people go to them. It's not just like queer people. Surprise. And so what happens is that now all these people like don't have healthcare, but gender affirming care is not always like going to get like a double mastectomy or going to get, you know, like your $1 million pussy. Like it's not always that. It's quite literally like, oh, I don't have any major medical problems. I just want to go for my yearly physical and like my doctor uses my pronouns. Oh my God. Like that, it's for the vast majority of people, that is actually what it is. And so then all of a sudden, not only do people who do need these like critical services, like mental health counseling, like, you know, masculinizing, feminizing surgeries, etc., like they, lose their healthcare, but then like everybody else as well. And so like I'm interested in from like a political perspective, like, okay, now what happens to all these people who now can't, now they live in a place where the nearest place they can go is 300 miles away. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, that's kind of in a nutshell what I'm interested in. As far as like specialty, I have absolutely no idea. I'm very impressionable. I know I don't like cardiology. I don't like nephrology. That's kidneys. I don't like a lot of things. I had a pulmonology phase. I really liked when we learned about lungs in medical school. I thought lungs were cool. I still think they're cool, but I don't know what I want to do. I have shadowed infectious disease. I really like microbiology. I think microbiology is like the thing I enjoyed the most about medical school. It's very mechanistic. And so if you have someone comes in, there's like very specific tests you can do to categorize what organism is causing it. And it's just like very algorithmic, and I really like that. Which I think is why I link that's related to Rubik's Cubes, because solving Rubik's Cubes is also very algorithmic. But I like allergy and infectious disease, like the immune system, I think is very interesting. It's also very challenging. Like immunology is very, very hard to understand. Like the immune system is really crazy. But I could see myself doing like allergy, immunology. You do internal medicine for 3 years and you do like a fellowship in allergy and immunology. Yeah, that's where I could see myself going. But I haven't done my clerkships yet, and that's where I feel like all the real learning actually happens. So, yeah.
When I tell people that I'm like the lowest achieving out of all my siblings and they don't believe me, I'm just going to play them back like the last 5 minutes of you talking. Oh. And I think that's going to get the point across. Oh. Yeah.
Well, I don't think comparison is necessary. I mean, I tell people my sisters are architect all the time, and they're like, architect? And I'm like, yeah, like the ones that design all the buildings.
You realize that I'm not. Like, legally, I can't say that.
Well, I mean, I've been saying that. So it's been said, so.
Let the record show I am not an architect yet. I'm working on it. It's very expensive, but I'm getting there. As of right now, I am just a podcaster and a project manager. Functionally, but more or less.
To each their own.
Yeah. But then for you, I guess, is it worthwhile then to stay in Chicago to do what you want to do on the policy side?
Absolutely not. I will never stay in Chicago. It's nothing against Chicago. Like, the problem is not Chicago. It is simply that some people, excuse me, Jesus, I tasted a little bacon in that. There are places that are made for certain people. And so for me, that was New York City. Like, I will be going back to New York City. That is where I laid out my roots, and I will be buried in Sheep Meadow. And that's just it. Chicago feels very small to me. I know a lot of people to whom Chicago feels very large, and to some people who they would never ever live in New York City ever. That's the thing. I think that's the issue. It's just like, this is just a place that is not like for me long term, and for right now it serves its purpose and it helps me achieve my goals, etc. But no, Chicago, especially in the queer community, oh my God, Chicago by itself is small, but specifically in the like queer community, specifically in the gay community, is very, very small. And what I mean by that is that there's like way too much mixing of my like work life and my personal life.
I hear you in that.
You'll like, God, you'll just meet. I have a perfect example, but I'll tell you that later off camera. But yeah, you'll be with someone and then they know your boss, or you'll be with someone and then next morning you find out they're like a resident, or you'll be with someone and they like know your friend who like slept with it's very like that, and it's so annoying. And
very incestuous.
There's very much like, exactly, like there's very much a scene. There is a scene, and I have no desire to be part of the scene. Like, I don't really go out to the gay bars that much anymore. I did my like first year a lot just because that was like the only thing to do that I really knew. And then after a while, I was just like, at a certain point, I felt like I had like completed the loop of everyone, and then it just started kind of repeating itself. And then there were new networks and I was just like, this is not anything that I want to be a part of. Like a really funny example, this is the example I said I'll tell you later, but I'll just talk about it now. I was talking to this person on Grindr, and we were just like, this is the one I already told y'all about this, actually.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, we were just like talking, just like normal. And then at a certain point, he was like, because you know how on Grindr you can put, or I don't know if you know.
I wouldn't know.
But on Grindr, you can put your relationship status. So it can be like single, partnered, married, da-da-da-da. So his said, I think it said open relationship. So I was like, or no, it didn't say anything actually. However, in some of his pictures, it was like him with, there's pictures where you can just tell it's like them and their partner, or like them and their boyfriend, whatever. And so he had this other man in his picture. So I was like, oh, like I assume that they're in an open relationship, which this wouldn't be my first rodeo. So I was like, whatever. And he was also in New York City at the time. So I was like, I'm not even going to see him for real. Like, he's all the way over there. And so at a certain point, he was just like, he's like, oh, are you going to like steal me from my man? Ha ha ha. And I'm like, oh, LOL. Like, I might have to, da 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 da. Like, little flirtatious things like that. And so he was like, oh, do you want to talk to him? And I was like, sure, LOL, whatever. And so he gave me his phone number. I was like, okay. And usually in these sorts of situations, I assume that like a lot of the time, like people in open relationships on this app will be using like the exact same account. So it's like whatever you're sending to people, they'll be able to see as well. Right. So in my brain, I'm like, they're in open communication, whatever. Yeah. Like I have nothing to really think about. So he gives me his phone number, and I text his boyfriend, who I'm assuming is like sitting right there in the room with them, and they're like reading these messages together. Mm-hmm. And so I put in the phone number to my, you go on your phone, you type in the phone number, and then like a whole conversation pops up on my phone that I've already had with this phone number. And so I'm reading the conversation like, oh, this is somebody I talked to like well over a year ago, when he was living in Chicago at the time. And so I texted him, I'm like, oh, haha, LOL, I'm talking to your man on Grindr. And then he's like, huh, because he doesn't remember who the fuck I am. And also because apparently his boyfriend is not supposed to be on Grindr. They are not in an open relationship. And so I'm like, oh yeah, like he gave me your phone number. And he's like, oh, he's not supposed to be on there. I'm like, oh.
The math isn't mathing.
Oh. I'm like, okay. Well, this is awkward. But yeah, so my larger point is that it's so mind you, this man is now in residency in a whole other city, right? He like, I still feel like I'm in the network even when he's all the way over. Like I can't have any, like nothing is to myself. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And Chicago is so small in that respect. Whereas in New York, granted in New York, I don't think I explored that dimension of my being that much. Mm-hmm. But in New York, like I never had that problem, right? Whereas in Chicago, it's like you go to work, there's people, you go to, it's just like, and that's why I really don't like, I don't really get involved with like residents that much, because it's just like they're all overworked and fucking thirsty and horny, and it's just like a recipe for disaster. Or you meet someone and they just have like very different, like I was with this one man who like, he just had such different goals than I did long term, and he was like not pushy, but he would like text me and I'm like, I see no future with you. I want to live in New York City. You want, you know, your own commune with the cows and and that's great. That is great. That is great for you to want. I just don't want that.
Yeah.
And you don't want what I want.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that either one of them is like worse than the other. That's just not what I want. And so, yeah, like I don't really explore the scene that much anymore. Yeah. Plus I just have a million other things that I could be doing. Like work is busy. I'm trying to get a whole PhD. I definitely need to write that dissertation. And so, yeah.
I feel like I'm in a similar scenario right now too, where like technically like this podcast and all the stuff that I do on Instagram related to it is like me first, you know, stepping into that lesbian or like, you know, queer scene in South Florida. Because I feel like I didn't even really get that chance when I was in school here. Like, of course, like I go to town, you know, every once in a while, but, you know, broke college student, you got to pay a $15 cover. Like, I was still under 21. I couldn't even buy a drink when I was there.
Chicago, there's no covers.
Oh, Miami, it depends. Depends on where you go. But like for the most part, like most places I walk in and there's no cover. But even like for all like the lesbian events that I go to, like I have to buy a ticket, but like that's essentially your cover. Again, it's like it's anywhere from like $5 to $15, but like the cost adds up. And then of course, like in Florida, drinks are like $20 to $30 for one, which is absolutely insane. Granted, they are double pouring, so I'm definitely flirting with death whenever I go to a bar around me. But whatever, anecdotes. But trying to step into that scene for the first time, and you know, meeting people either even at the friend or the romantic level. I also just have a hard time finding people who have goals that like align with mine. Like I think I got very lucky with my ex, because like we both kind of wanted like that, the commune. Like we wanted the cows, I wanted the horses, I want chickens, goats, whatever. And she probably would have inherited a cattle farm, like an operable like cattle farm at some point in time. So it's like having that and then having to walk away from it for various reasons, and then like trying to find again somebody who kind of checks all the boxes is like very difficult. And I think on top of it, like we've been raised to be these like very goal driven people, and we've been raised to be very high achieving, that to find somebody who complements that, or to find somebody even who's just not intimidated by that, is incredibly difficult. But then, so what is it about then New York that I guess really speaks to you?
Lots of things. New York just has this energy that is so palpable in the air that Chicago does not have at all. Chicago to me feels it has the downtown, and then the rest of Chicago feels very residential. So that's one thing I will say, like, because I don't want people to confuse small with boring. Like Chicago is not boring. Don't get me wrong. The Midwest, all these little Midwestern cities, I fortunately was able to do some exploring. This summer, I got to go to St. Louis, and I got to go to Indianapolis for 2 little just like weekend trips, and I had an excellent time. These are little tiny cities, but like definitely pack the same sort of like culinary experience that could compete with any of these New Yorks, LAs, DCs, any of these places that I've been. Yes, but no, Chicago has like plenty to do. It just feels very small. Whereas like New York has plenty to do and doesn't feel very small. I like that in New York. I'm never, ever, ever gonna run out of things to do. Like the people that are there, everyone's kind of coming in, going out, coming in, going out. It has this very kind of transient nature to it. Whereas Chicago, I definitely feel like people are more like settled down, even in Chicago proper. Like, cause Chicago, there's like houses and like 4 flats, things like that, where people pay their mortgage and like live. Whereas in New York, that's not quite the same. Or if you are like settled down and paying a mortgage, you're part of the elite. That's more so the case. It's just like a different energy in terms of who's there and like how long they plan to be staying. My thing with New York is that yes, it is expensive, and on average you're going to be paying like a couple to several hundred more dollars per month for just things like in general, rent, groceries, like all that kind of stuff. But so the first thing is that there are ways in New York to mitigate expenses. You don't need to shop at Whole Foods. You can go to Food Town. You don't need an Equinox membership. You can go to Planet Fitness. You know, there are things that you can do to make it a little cheap. Like you don't, when I lived there, like I rarely ever Ubered. Like it was always a public transit situation. Because Uber, like, whereas in Chicago, coming home from like the club, we always Uber, like basically, because to get all three of us home, like all 3-4 stops sometimes can be like $27, $28. So it's like, oh, I have $7. Whereas in New York, oh my God, like you got to take one friend to Brooklyn, you got to take one friend to Harlem, you got to take and then it's $80. Like in New York, oh no, we're just going to take the train to go home. So that's another way to make it less expensive to live. But then my thing is also like, in terms of what I'm getting for that much more money, in my experience, it was very much worth it. Like where I lived in Harlem, everything I needed was in the neighborhood. Everything I needed was on my block.
Right.
Like if I never wanted to have left that neighborhood ever, I probably could have, especially at the point in time when people started working from home. Like I truly, if I were still living there working from home, like everything I needed, the gym was in the neighborhood. I lived on top of this amazing Dominican restaurant. The laundromat was on the block. The grocery store was, there was an Aldi and a Food Town. There was like the gym and the Aldi were in the same shopping complex that also had a Petco, a Burlington, a Marshalls, a like other kind of stores like that, the gym, and then there was a Food Town, which is like your local Giant or like Food Lion sort of situation, like nothing fancy, but it had everything that I needed. Like everything for like groceries came from there, everything. I don't think I actually ever went to a Whole Foods in New York City ever.
Hold up, you say
or a Trader Joe's
it was really convenient as like working from home, but like wasn't there a point during the pandemic where you made like 7 steps in a day?
7 who?
7 steps. Like you checked.
Steps? What do you mean?
Like you checked on your phone how much you had walked, like one of those days, and it was 7.
Yeah, because I mean, sometimes I just, why would I go outside if I don't need to? But anyways, but yeah, like things like that. Everything is on the block. Like how convenient it is does not compare to Chicago. Like Chicago, you have to go places if you need, like if I want to like grocery shopping, my grocery store is like right there. I do walk. It's like super easy. I'm very fortunate in that my job is walkable from where I live. That's not like a common thing. That's just how it ended up working out for me. But I am very fortunate in that. But like shopping, or if I need something like particular, I'll have to go. Not that doesn't happen in New York, obviously, like I would go around, but like that convenience of like never having to leave my neighborhood, that does not exist, at least in where I live in Chicago. And I would say in Chicago, I live in like a nice neighborhood.
Yeah, you do.
And so, yeah, just that. I do say what I like about where I live though in Chicago is that it's very homey, it's very residential. I like that you see people like walking with their kids on the sidewalk and like walking their dogs. My like street there's a playground, and you'll see people like grilling during the summertime when it's nice out. That I really like, that I didn't quite see where I lived in New York. I'm sure it definitely existed, just not like where I lived. I didn't see it like super often. The other thing about New York is that with public transportation, it's so much more comprehensive. Like in New York City, you can walk. So for example, like a super easy example is the like 6 train, like the 456 that goes between, that basically connects like the Bronx, Manhattan, and Brooklyn. And so where I got on at 125th Street, the next stop was 116th Street. And then it usually goes like every 10 blocks or so. So it'd be like 125th, 116th, 103rd, 96th, 86th, 77th, 67, 59. It's like every 10 blocks or so. Like you can walk comfortably between those stations. So I remember sometimes if there was like, this is actually a really good example. So if I went to like 125th and there was like a problem with the trains, let me just walk to 116th and then keep going about my way. Even if there's a problem at 116th, I'll just walk to 110. Because like 15 blocks to walk in New York, that's like not a big deal. That's like a good little 15-minute, like 20-minute walk. In Chicago, you can't really walk between. It's kind of like Miami. Like y'all have the train. It's not quite that bad. But like in Chicago, you can't like walk really, depending, especially the further you get out, you can't really walk between the train stations. Perfect example, the other day, there's 2 stops, Addison and Belmont, which aren't, to walk between them 20 minutes. Yeah, like 20 minutes, 25 minutes. I remember it was like I was trying to go, so there's like my stop where I live, and then you go to Addison, and then after Addison is Belmont. However, there was construction happening between Addison and Belmont on that section of the track. And so we all had to get off of the train at Addison, right? Go down. They had some shuttles. Mind you, this is everybody trying to get on the shuttle. Shuttle then takes you all the way down to Belmont. You got to get back on the train, continue going south wherever you were trying to go. And it's a whole ordeal. If there's like construction going on or something. The other thing about other than that, like the train is fine to get you where you need to go. The other thing is just like the experience of being on the train. Like me being on the subway in New York City or the bus, or I think I only ever had like one like negative experience. I was with a friend and it was just this man who just like was not all here. And he was just making like homophobic comments, things like that. He wasn't going to do nothing though. It was just like, this is just another day in New York City is how I thought of it. But other than that, never any issues. Chicago, oh my God. Like I have definitely seen like violence on trains. In New York City, smoking on the train is not a thing. I only ever saw someone smoke a cigarette one time on the train in New York City. And it was the sort of thing where everyone on the train was like heckling him to like put out a cigarette. Because it was like, what the fuck is wrong with you? That was the only time I ever saw smoking on the train in New York City, ever. In Chicago, it's like you expect that someone's going to be smoking on the train. Like the trains always smell so bad. They're not cleaned with the same frequency, or perhaps they are and they just get dirty faster. But I remember like in New York, I'm not saying I would lick the ground of the New York City subway, but like the trains, just like daily cleaning and maintenance, I felt like was more frequent. In Chicago, the trains just like aren't quite as like well, like they look unkempt just visually. People often smoke like middies or cigarettes, like weed, which weed I don't mind. It's just like the smell of cigarettes is very irritating to me.
It's a closed
and
space.
So you get on the train and then it's like you try to go. So the thing is, if you go on one car and there's an issue, you just wait till you get to the next stop, get out, go to a different car. But like it's often the case where in the next car you go to, it's going to be the exact same thing. So you're sitting there, like it smells. That's really annoying. Like even on the train that I was taking to go to the airport to come here yesterday, like I got on the train, it just had this like awful smell, and it's like you get out, try to go to the other car, but it's like this is the airport subway, so there's like all these people. It's just like it's crazy and hectic, and it was Thanksgiving, so there was that added layer as well. Taking the bus is an absolute elite experience. Like I definitely feel like when I'm on the bus, this is like the grown-ups. Like the crowd on the bus is definitely, I would say, like older people, it feels generally. So I really like the bus, but like I can't really shit on the public transportation. Like functionally, it gets me where I need to go, and and then the few issues I have of like not being able to get somewhere, in my experience, have just been like regular sort of like the inherent maintenance required to like keep a metropolitan transport system like functioning. It's never been just like randomly not functioning. Whereas I feel like in New York, oh my God, it'll just be like delays because they haven't fixed that thing since, the 80s. And so, or like the rise in, or scratch that, because I don't know if that's 100% accurate, but to me, it felt like the rise in price has not been demonstrated in the actual functionality of the transport system. And so I'm like, why is because you've probably seen these videos on Twitter, etc. Like, why is the train flooding? Like, why do we not have the infrastructure to prevent the train system in the biggest city in the United States from flooding? Like, this global city, and you can see the rats swimming through that should not happen. Why does it now cost, I think it's up to $3 now, or somewhere very close to it, somewhere very close to being north or south of $3. Why does the train still not work the way that it's supposed to? Why are there always mad delays? Why is it still filthy? Do you know what I mean? And so, whereas in Chicago, like, I haven't quite had that sort of experience, but also I don't pay, like, I get a transportation subsidy through school, and so that I've also just never like felt the impact of, because it's like I don't pay for it basically. But yeah, no, like, New York just has so much, it just has so much more, because it is naturally, like, geographically a bigger place than Chicago is. And so there's just like, I still have all my old spots that I go to when I visit. Just like a lot more culture. Not that Chicago doesn't have like ethnic enclaves, it absolutely does. I just feel like in New York there's like more to do. Chicago feels more kind of like, because it was, you know, very traditionally like a place where factory workers owned their factories and their mills. And so we definitely have in the western parts, like, a lot of you walk in a lot of these now, like, it's $3,800 for a 1-bedroom, and it's basically just some like repurposed loft or some factory that someone turned into like luxury condos. It definitely has that like industrial feel to it. There is like a proper downtown with skyscrapers and stuff like that, but that area just feels so much smaller than it does in New York City. And that vibe for me is very comforting, like being surrounded by very tall buildings. Like Chicago, that's not quite the case. There aren't like as many skyscrapers as there are in New York City. There's lots of parks. It's very nice. Like, you can walk around, like you've seen, you can go to the park, walk around. It's very naturey. I like having the lake. I will say, like, I like the lake more than the rivers in New York City. Like, the lake, it feels like blue and like a proper beach kind of waterfront, whereas in New York, the Hudson, I would never ever like just jump in there. I never went to the beach in New York City.
Yeah,
actually, the first time I went to the water in New York City was the time I was there in June for when my friends were running the marathon, the Brooklyn Half Marathon, and it was in Coney Island. That was the first time I ever been to Coney Island. And I was like, oh, this is kind of cute, but it still looks kind of, I don't know if I would swim in that. Which is crazy, because it's the same Atlantic Ocean, but I feel like in Maryland, I would go in that. In New York City, I'm like, I don't know. It just has a different feeling. Yeah. But, yeah, no. But I've never lived in LA. I don't think I could do LA because you have to drive, and I've heard the traffic is awful. And they also don't have a great public transit. Like, I'm a very big, like, public transit boy.
Yeah, you've literally been venting about it for like 15 minutes right now.
Exactly. Like, and so LA, I don't think I could do. Miami, the humidity, also the having to drive, I could not do. Same thing with like all the major cities in Texas. I just couldn't do. I've never done Philly, but I feel like Philly is smaller than Chicago, so probably not.
Philly's also just dirty.
Atlanta, same thing. Like, you have to drive. I don't think I could do that. It's not like a public transit sort of place. So for me, like, New York and Chicago have been like the best options. But I don't know. Maybe eventually I'll bite the bullet and just, because I can drive, I just don't like to. And so, like, I don't want all the extra costs associated with like owning a vehicle. Like, I just don't want to have to deal with any of that. I also just get scared of like, what if I hit somebody or like hit something? The easier solution is simply just to not have one and just to rely on public transit. And it's gotten me this far. So yeah.
Okay, so we have spoken in depth about public transit in every major metropolitan city in the United States. That's probably what I'm going to title this episode now. So I guess to keep like rewinding, you talked about Chicago, you talked about New York. In terms of your experience I think both in Maryland and DC, I guess, how did your like sexuality and kind of like that realization of, you know, who you are, I guess, how did that influence your decisions when it came to like career, education, or did it impact like at all for you?
I mean, not quite. Honestly, I mean, who can know? I that's just kind of the way it happened. I don't know what would have happened in an alternative reality. But no, it didn't really influence choices. I guess if anything, it influenced the way. So I guess, yeah, like my PhD is in like, it's in public health, but a focus in like LGBTQ health. So yeah, okay. So I guess I understand the question better now. Yeah, I would say like that definitely influenced it. Like experiences that I had definitely influenced like the kind of healthcare that I want to be able to provide for people that have similar identities. I think it helped that I had like excellent mentors in college. Like I had a queer like principal advisor in research. I think that really helped. Had like a really queer friend group, and then in Colombia, being around like other queer people, I definitely think was influential. And then of course like going to New York after that definitely was influential. And kind of like immersing myself in community. Being part of, I don't know if I ever told you about that protest group that I was a part of.
No.
No, but I was basically I'll tell you about it later, but it's run by this Black trans abolitionist named Queen Jean, who's incredible. And I definitely think that like experience and like listening to people like speak within that group was very influential. And I would go with like one of my good friends, which was fun to do. And I don't quite have that experience a lot. Like it was a group we would go every single week. Like in Chicago, I'm sure that exists, but I like tried finding that in the beginning, and I couldn't find anything quite like similar. But yeah.
Interesting. No, I'd say it's kind of like the same in my experience, where it's not, like obviously like I'm not, I don't like own a lesbian club or like something like that, but my decision for like what I was going to do for my thesis is like very much driven by my experiences like as a queer person, or even like my decision to pursue this podcast, like heavily influenced by the fact that like I am queer, and that I feel like people like me deserve to feel comfortable and like have community.
Message.
Mm-hmm. So then I did want to touch on like groceries.
Like groceries?
Yeah.
Okay.
Where did that begin?
Being trapped at home for, God, how long was that? Like 4 months with nothing to do. Because what am I going to do in Maryland? You even ordinarily can't do anything. God forbid during a pandemic. So just sitting at home all day, nothing really to do. Like my job at that point became like a joke. I wasn't really doing anything. So other than really just working on my medical school applications, which ended up being very convenient, like being able to sit home and like only be able to work on that was very nice. I did luck out. But yeah, just sitting at home, like what else am I gonna do? And you know them, they keep sauces in the fridge for months at a time, and all these ingredients that put them in the freezer. So I was like, well, let me just start cooking. And so that was the start of it. Didn't know shit about food. Started doing it there for like a couple months. I actually, in New York, the first year I lived there, I hadn't even turned on my stove. I was ordering out a lot, every single day, pretty much every day, going to bodega or ordering out, but I was getting paid well, so it didn't even really make that big of a difference. But I remember when I went back after staying in Maryland for those first 4 months of the pandemic, I asked my super if he could come turn my stove on. Funny enough, it was just as simple as literally plugging it into the wall. I thought we had to like call the company, get the gas turned on. Or not plugging it in, he just had to turn the nozzle to let gas flow through the thing. The gas was there the whole time. But yeah, and then I started doing that, like playing around with like more creative ingredients. Cause that's the thing, so I would go to this store, it was a chain grocery store in New York City called Food Town. They had them in all 5 boroughs. This basic ass, that's the thing, even the basic grocery stores have like nice ingredients. So my neighborhood Food Town, I was buying mussels. I bought an entire octopus one time from like, not them little tiny, it was actually, not on my, I'd have to find it in my stories, but I posted it one time. I got like a proper like big ass octopus one time for like $20 or something from the grocery store at Food Town. And it was like the neighborhood Food Town. So I remember like the butcher like knew me, very friendly. Like I got to know like the employees. Had like good options and stuff, had like a very wide variety of like ethnic spices and cuisine ingredients and things like that, which was really nice. And then if I needed something particular, I remember like for my going away party, I wanted to make this like truffle pasta. So I went to like Italy and spent, $20 $20 on a black truffle, things like that. Like if you needed something special, I would go somewhere else, but rarely was that ever the case. I could pretty much get everything I needed from Aldi, or I could go to Food Town, or I could go to literally like the little bodega deli / grocery store that was like this big across the street. And it would have like specialty stuff sometimes that I needed. You could go like little tiny grocery stores. Like that's the thing, is like even the basic places in New York are like top quality, which is like different from Chicago. There's not really like bodegas or corner stores, like kinda, but it's not the same like vibe. But yeah, and then I just kept doing that, and it just like brought me a lot of joy. And I like to eat, like, to be very honest, like I don't like the process of cooking. I don't like how long it takes. I don't like the cleanup. Jesus, I hate the cleanup. I hate the like. I'm not well versed in like quality of like materials, and so I have like a wooden cutting board that I'm sure I don't clean properly, but I'm just like, whatever, I'll buy a new one. Like I'll just so really like once a year I'll just go to fucking TJ Maxx and spend $15 on a cutting board. Like it's not that serious. But like, am I gonna go buy like the resin to like properly? Fuck no. I'm sure there's like microscopic bits of like food that are like caked away into this thing. Mold. There definitely is, but I'm just like, I'm fine. I've been fine for, when did I start like groceries? How long has it been? Like 4 or 5 years. Yeah. Like I'm fine. So I'm not gonna like, I still have the remember when they gave me those like pots and pans? Like I still have all of that from Lord. Same thing, like 4 or 5 years ago. Like I'm sure the like Teflon is like coming off. Like
absolutely.
It absolutely is, but like it's fine. I don't care. Like why would I spend like hundreds of dollars on high quality? Like I'm not at that point in my career yet. Like I don't need to. That's not something that I need to spend money on. And I value spending money on like going out or like drinks with my friends or things like that. And so I'd rather spend money there than like spend money on high quality like materials. Whereas what I use right now, the food still tastes good and it gets me it gets the job done. Maybe when I have like a career and like a real salary, like I'll splurge on. I would love to get a Dutch oven. I feel like if I had like the top of my wish list, if I could spend a lot of money right now on like a high quality piece of like cooking ware, I would want a really nice frying pan, like a really nice like carbonized stainless steel like non-stick big ass frying pan to make like big stuff in, and one that I can put in the oven. I would love, because the frying pan right now I can't put in the oven, but I would love to be able to like sear a steak, for example, on the stove and like let it finish in the oven. But I just don't have a pan that I'd have to like take it out, put it into like my Pyrex, put that in the oven. That's too much. Like why dirty up 2 dishes for all that? But that I would love. A Dutch oven will be nice. I find cast irons to be very intimidating, and I don't like need one.
The maintenance is also like kind of annoying.
Yeah, it's like all that for a damn pan. No, it's a pan. Like I don't need that. That's too much. Knives would be nice. Like knives hasn't really been an issue because I live alone, and so I actually don't have a lot of things that require like chopping. If I'm having steak, for example, like I just slice it with like my big, like I literally use that knife that you use, those 2 knives, the silver one that's like all silver and the black one that y'all see in my videos, literally bought both those at the dollar store. Like nothing fancy. I don't sharpen my knives. Like people often will look at my page and they're like, oh, that looks so fancy, or like when I cook for people, like, yeah, it's so good. I'm like, child, a lot of this is just like you don't need like expensive stuff to make good food. Like that's honestly the one thing I want people to take away from like groceries, is that like high quality ingredients that they use in these restaurants. Like yeah, it'd be ideal, but like common folk like can't afford that kind of stuff. Like what makes, like, why is a scallop, like, what inherently makes a scallop fancier than a potato? You know, like you can make good potatoes. Like if you know what you're doing, you can make good potatoes. Like you don't need to buy like these expensive things. And when you ration, like when people see that I put truffle in something, I'm like, oh, I went to my neighborhood grocery store. I bought truffle oil for, it was probably $18, but like that'll last me years. Like I don't put truffle in everything. And when you put truffle oil in something, you really only need to drizzle like a half a teaspoon of it on this. I'm like, it's not that serious. Like things like that, or steak. Like I'm not buying T-bones. I just buy like the cheapest little one that I can find, and like it doesn't need to be fancy. Like I buy a lot of stuff on sale, or if you go to I have like there's the store in Chicago. It's called Jewel Osco is the grocery store that I go to.
Oh, we have this in Florida too.
You have Jewel Osco in Florida?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we Jewel Osco. That's like the staple that I go to in Chicago. I have the app. I look at the app. I'm always see what the deals are. A lot of the time, it's like if you spend X amount of money on this, like you get this for free, or like spend this amount in the produce, you get this for free, or spend this amount on like meat or deli, you get this for free. So I do a lot of that. Like clipping coupons, things like that. Like I'm really a master of like looking like I live expensively, but absolutely do not. Mm-hmm. Like same thing with flights. Clothing, like these pants, I told you, like almost $200, and I paid $11, $20, something like that. Like I'm very good at that, deals, things like that. It just takes intention. That's all it does. Like it takes intention. With food, coming up with like, I definitely have my like 3 or 4 things in my brain that are memorized that I just love to do. Like I love carbonara. That's like a quick thing. Like salads, very quick, ceviche. That I'm like a very big on like raw seafood kind of thing. Like ceviche, aguachiles, I love perch, little like carpaccios, like salmon carpaccios, things like that. Like very easy kind of stuff. Polenta, super easy to eat with like a braised short rib or like some lamb. Like lamb is not very expensive. You can go to the store, and that's the thing, like I'm not buying lamb. These people that going and buying like the whole rib, like, and it looks anatomically correct still, like I don't buy that. I go and I get the lamb little like steaks, bone in. It costs $4.70 for like 3 or 4 of them. That braise it easy. Like that's the thing, like those cheap little things that I have in my head that I know are going to be like reliable and they're like impressive. If you want to impress anybody, just put some microgreens on something. Very cheap. You go to Whole Foods, just get a pack for like $4. It can last you for several meals. Same thing with like, that's the other thing with like because garnishes will make any food look nice.
Yeah.
I like to use microgreens. I like to use edible flowers. I literally just pick them off the street. Like it's crazy. Like in my neighborhood, I have memorized like which planters will have the flowers that I want. And I can like clockwork. I know in the summertime, this is going to be available. So there's like a bush outside my apartment that grows different variations of cosmos flowers that'll be yellow or orange. I'll use that. There's somebody's planter that I like that has marigolds of all these different varieties. You can use those to decorate cocktails, food. You can use pansies. Pansies are beautiful. Like I'll just steal those honestly from the grocery store. You can get purple pansies, yellow pansies, like these kind of ones that look like they're like fiery kind of orange and all these different colors. You can use pansies to decorate things. You can use alfalfa sprouts, like all these cheap things that you can just find like laying around. So are we coming up on time?
Yeah, we're being rushed by our mother, and you can't say no to your mother. Also, talking about food is making me very hungry right now. So sorry to cut it short, but you definitely had a lot to say about a lot of things. And I appreciate you for coming on here. Maybe we can actually do a cooking episode another time. It is. Like. Yeah, you're like braised in sunlight right now.
I know.
Yeah. That's okay.
But I am vitamin D insufficient. I got my diagnosis.
Oh.
Not deficient. I'll tell you about that later. But
okay.
Like the lowest category on the graph. Like clinical. Like high dose cholecalciferol D3. Anyways.
Yeah, I don't know what any of those words mean.
Yeah.
So where can people follow you?
My Instagram is @_ChrisAO, ChrisEyo. And my food is just like groceries, literally @like.groceries.
Right.
And that's it.
You can follow me at bottumsup.pod. Make sure that you're spelling bottoms with a U because I am dyslexic. And I'll go ahead and I'll link all of Christopher's things in the show notes as well, and he'll be linked on, tagged on Instagram and all of that. So thank you for coming on. Thank you for listening, and I will see you guys in the next episode.